Hello, everybody, and welcome to this ACCP Ask the Expert interview. I am pleased to introduce Dr. Stephan Schmidt, a fellow German from Germany, who I had the pleasure of sharing part of my graduate study experience at the University of Florida College of Pharmacy. Hello there, Stephan. How are you doing? And can you tell us a little bit about yourself first?
Hello, Oliver. Actually, I think the pleasure was all on my side, but thank you for the kind introduction. So my name is Stephan Schmidt. I'm an associate professor here at the University of Florida, Department of Pharmaceutics, and I serve here also as the associate director for the Center for Pharmacometrics and Systems Pharmacology, as well as the endowed Cetara professor at the University of Florida.
So over the years, obviously, you have made great strides in your career, and your current work and research kind of has evolved from not only your graduate studies, but also your postdoctoral work and what you have done over the years. So would you describe it as kind of a pathway, a targeted pathway, or how would you describe your current work and research? Was it really along a straight path?
No, actually not at all. I think if you may allow me like a general comment up front, I think it was more like an attempt of trying to identify what makes me happy in my work life, and then basically steer my work life accordingly. So originally I came here as probably same as you, as an exchange student to the University of Florida, working in Hart Moderna's lab, and in the beginning I had like no intention of staying on for a graduate program, but I liked my time at the University of Florida, as well as the dynamic environment that Hartmut's group provided. And one day I decided to ask the question if there was a possibility to stay on for the PhD program. I said, why not? I mean, apply and do the GRE and all the tests that you need to do, and then we'll take it from there. And I was fortunate to meet all the marks, and it started as a PhD student on a wet lab project, which was at the time anti-infectives, because I felt working on anti-infectives is really where you can have a big impact on society, because if you look at history, a lot of death have been caused by infectious diseases, and that seemed really meaningful to me at the time, and it still does. And so I basically, my career developed from there. And when I first came to Hart Moderna's lab, he actually asked me, what do you want to do? And do you want to do like a hands-on wet lab or something more computer-based? And my honest answer at the time was everything but pharmacokinetics. And yet here we are. But the reason I'm saying this is that I learned to appreciate the use of mathematical and statistical methodologies that I'm currently very heavily using in my daily life through a practical application and not through a theoretical background. And I think that has given me also like the appreciation that you should, or at least that's the way I think about it, you should really focus the efforts that you spend on a daily life in order to answer a question or solving a problem, rather than just working on a theoretical concept that you may actually be the only person that is interested in. So having recognized that, I decided then, since you asked about my postdoc, to move forward to a more modeling heavy side at the time, which was Meinde Donder's group and Oscar de la Pascua's group in the Netherlands, and work for the Dutch Top Institute Pharma, which is a consortium out of industry, government, and academia, and was heavily focused on drug disease modeling. Worked a lot with mathematicians, which was a very interesting experience since I was learning like a different language at the time, and then being fortunate enough to be offered a position back at the University of Florida, and then combining theoretical and practical experiences under the guidance of Larry Lesko, who at the time had just retired as director from the Office of Clinical Pharmacology, putting this in a very applied context. And so I consider myself very fortunate. I had great mentors, as hard-minded and Larry along the way.
Yeah. So would you then say that you chose the field of clinical pharmacology as an applied field, or of kind of an extension of all of your work, of your accumulated work in anti-infectives, and also using the modeling to actually apply it to a therapeutical setting?
Yes, I think that's a fair statement. For me, the application is in the center of what you do. Ultimately, you want to help a patient cure disease, or at least make him better. If I was just to develop models for the sake of developing models, I would call this a hobby.
Yeah. So I take it from your statements that really your most influential mentors were Hartmut Derendorf and Larry Lesko, so to say. Is that statement kind of accurate?
I think so. I mean, Minded had certainly also his influence as one of the founders or giants in the area of clinical pharmacology, and really elaborating on concepts. But I think it is a fair statement that Hartmut got me into the field of clinical pharmacology, and Larry has certainly contributed to my appreciation for the practical application.
Yeah. Now, looking back on your career and where you are now, what advice can you give a new and upcoming clinical pharmacologist? So not necessarily somebody who, like you as a pharmacist, and me also as a pharmacist who has like a pharmacy background, but anybody who has a background in any healthcare field or health sciences, who is now just graduating with a degree that leads them to work in clinical pharmacology. What would be your advice to them?
Well, I think my main advice would be that life is short, and in many cases it's too short to do something that you don't like on a daily basis. So therefore, I think it's important while you are either in training or right after training to explore the various opportunities that are out there, because they're not necessarily something that are presented to you on a golden platter during pharmacy school. And so I think there's a little bit of self-initiative required, talking to faculty, talking to external advisors, maybe do an internship or two in various areas, and also don't be afraid to take chances. So in other words, if an opportunity arises, don't pull down the shutter, and just take a risk. And the worst thing that really can happen is that you have a life experience, and you may not have liked it to the extent you were hoping for, but nevertheless, it's a life experience, and it may open up unexpected avenues forward.
Yeah, I think that's a great statement. Do you think that sometimes there is not only opportunities and initiatives, but also a certain degree of luck to run into the right people at the right time?
Yeah, absolutely. And I actually, thought about this quite frequently in retrospect of Hartmut's retirement, for example, when the way I originally got to know about Hartmut was through a school trip from the University of Erlangen at the time towards a generic company in Munich, and that particular morning I hit some traffic, and I was like, just made it barely to the bus. 2 minutes later I would have missed the bus and probably never learned about like Hartmut. Definitely there's a little bit of luck involved. But I think it's too simplistic to reduce it just to an element of luck, because I think, as I said, self-initiative is required, and also requires to some extent to get out of your comfort zone, to approach people, to network, and so once in a while to take chances. And so I think it's a combination of factors.
Okay, yeah. Now, given your current position and everything that you have achieved, I can assume that you are quite heavily involved in research projects. But how do you distribute your 1.0 FTE among research, teaching, meetings, traveling, and potentially also consulting? How do you manage to distribute your time among all of these different things?
Well, that's a great question, but I think that's not a complete question. And the reason that I say that is that people like to talk in terms of FTEs, but if you want to do this job for a longer period of time, then I think you need to find a balance between work and life. And so I have 3 small children, 7, 5, and 3 at this point, and my wife also wants to talk to me every once in a while. So I think it's not about like FTEs and work and travel and meetings and papers. I think it's really to manage your time in a way that you try to make everybody happy and not forget about yourself every once in a while. And that's important, to take care of yourself, not just try to meet the needs of everybody else. And I feel very fortunate that the position that I'm in offers some flexibility to meet these different needs. So it's not necessarily like a 9-to-5 job. I think that's a fair statement. And as long as I meet my deliverables, people leave me alone. And whether or not I get these things done on Christmas Eve or from 9 to 5, and nobody cares. And I think that's one of the great things about the position I'm in.
Yeah, I think work-life balance is definitely something that everybody should keep in mind. I think there is no such thing as a 9-to-5 position, really, no matter if you work in industry or in academia any longer. And keeping that work-life balance is quite important, especially if you have a family. And I assume you also want to talk to your wife once in a while, not only she to you.
No, she's certainly the best part of my life. The other thing is that I think it requires quite a bit of self-discipline in order to keep a schedule, to also exercise, take care of yourself, take care of your students, but also sometimes, and that's not easy to do when you start out, be able to say no, because you get like dragged into a lot of different directions, and you're inclined to say, okay, I'd like to do this and that and the other thing, and then recognizing that this may be a little too much and you're overcommitted at some stage. So no is a perfectly reasonable answer, for certain things. And then certainly time management is very important. I personally use my calendar to block for certain items on my to-do list, because otherwise it's just not happening. And but also communicating to your team that this is the way that you want to run the shop, and then everybody's on the same page, because otherwise it just looks that you're not available, and that's not really a good motivational factor from a team perspective. So I think communication of what is currently important in your life, and what may be number 2 or number 3 on the list is certainly very helpful.
Great. Yeah. So in conclusion, what do you think was kind of the biggest challenge, and what was kind of in your current career, looking back, reflecting on it up until this point? Obviously, there might be bigger things yet to come for you, and I see that coming in your future. But what was the biggest challenge up until now, and what are you most proud of in reflection?
Well, let me start with the latter part of your question first. I mean, what I'm most proud of is my students and postdocs and trainees. Excuse me. because I take great joy into seeing somebody else become successful, and then knowing that I had a certain piece along the way. I think that fills me with great pride, and yeah, that's certainly a very nice part of the job. The challenges along the way is certainly that when you start out from student life through training and then career stages, I think at some point you need to make a transition from worrying about yourself only, my coursework, my grades, this, that, and the other thing, towards taking care of a team, taking care of other people, having family responsibilities. And I think that takes a little bit of a transition period. It's not easy, and I think it's fair to say that everybody makes their own mistakes along the way, and it's important to learn from these mistakes and also, be honest and humble enough to say, okay, I'm sorry every once in a while, because nobody's perfect. Excuse me.
I think that's actually a great statement, and I think quite a few people could take that to heart sometimes. Yeah, I think that that reflects many careers actually. When I look at some of the other great folks that we have at ACCP that have over the years, really shown their extraordinary careers and leadership. You were Regent with ACCP, a fellow and a Regent at ACCP right now. So I think you have contributed to ACCP in so many ways, and the organization is very much thankful for your many contributions as of yet, and many more that are to come. So I think having you and others contribute to ACCP enriches our membership, and as you said, caring about students, caring about the profession of clinical pharmacology as a whole, helps us to foster this network, really this global network that ACCP represents, which is reflected in the membership. And what is unique to ACCP, I think, what drew you into it and what draws many others into it is really the unique collaborations that you can establish, the interactions that you have between academia, industry, and also the regulatory bodies, especially FDA, but now also some other regulatory bodies. And I think that is what makes ACCP unique and helps us to connect and stay connected on many levels. So with that being said, any concluding wisdom that you can that I can pass on in your name?
No, I think we covered it, and just wanted to say that it's always a pleasure talking to you, and I've that I've valued and cherished you as a friend and role model along the way. So thank you for that.
Oh, thank you, Stephan. It's always a pleasure talking to you, and I look forward to many more years, not only as a colleague at the University of Florida, but as a friend. And yeah, thank you very much for taking the time today.
Well, last statement I have to make: go Gators.
Oh yes, go Gators, right? Okay, take care.
Take care. Bye.